So, Dan, at the top of the show, we talked about this a little bit. We have a very special interview with one Neil Cole, who has got himself quite an interesting collection of science fiction, especially classic Doctor Who.
He certainly has. I can't remember exactly how many he's got, but yeah, I was impressed. I think you probably will be too when you hear the interview with him.
Yeah, and Neil has a science fiction television museum that he just opened just a few months ago. There's actually a spot on Netflix which he's going to talk about, which talks about this museum, as well as he has a YouTube channel and a page on Facebook, which we will provide links for you here. But this is a very fascinating interview, especially for you classic Who fans. So without further ado, here's Dan sitting down with Neil Cole. Well, we got a very special section here for you on this episode of Type 40. Dan, you have brought us a very special guest to talk some Doctor Who.
Yeah, well, because it's the Fandom Podcast Network, one of the things we like to do is get some voices in from across fandom to talk about, their particular connection with Doctor Who, where it comes from, and how they take it through, sort of, if they were a child when they first found it, sort of into adult life, and how that gets sort of put on a larger scale. And this guest sort of illustrates that. I can't think of anybody who could illustrate it more. He's the curator of the UK's newest, very geeky place to sort of to check into, and it's the Museum of Classic Sci-Fi. His name's Neil Cole. Thank you for joining us, Neil. How are you?
Oh, I'm well, thanks. I'm just saying it's a snowstorm up here, literally, in the last half hour. So I've fled, boxed up the Dalek outside, poor thing, and fled upstairs to talk to this. This is much nicer up here, to be honest, at the minute.
So what does it more resemble at the moment? Is it like the ice planet of Hoth, or is it the surface of the Antarctic with the where the Cybermen do all their stalking? Is it a bit like any of those things?
It feels a bit like I was in the museum. It was like Kurt Russell in The Thing. There was sort of weird noises outside. I was like some sort of multi-headed dog thing to slop its way in or something. I'm glad to be upstairs.
So, well, tell us about your museum. If there are people out there listening who think, I'd love to visit somewhere like that. Where are you? How long have you been open? And how's it all going?
Okay, I've been open since October. I'm open 4 days a week: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And we're in Northumberland, in the North Pennines, which is an area of outstanding natural beauty. So it's a beautiful neck of the woods. A lot of people haven't been. It's really worth coming from. We're not far from the Roman Wall. There's a lovely little observatory that's been set up as well, not far from us here. And basically, how's it going? We had our 600th visitor since October last weekend. Even though it's snowing outside, I had a few people that travelled. I had someone that travelled from Snowdonia today. 2 people, a sci-fi author actually, who's just starting off, had travelled from Snowdonia in Wales. I mean, you're going to knock me over because I'm just painting some bits and dusting, not expecting to see a soul today. Just more worried about, how hot my coffee is. And then suddenly there's a guy at the door, and he's from Snowdonia. Amazing. And it's that, but it's Doctor Who, isn't it? It's science fiction, and we do this sort of thing. I do this sort of thing. I used to travel all over the country to find anything. If somebody said there was a Doctor Who costume on display, I was like a whippet. I would be there.
And even if it was just the one.
Oh, I travelled to Cornwall to see a Zygon once. Cornwall. That's that's a good 500 miles from here.
Yeah, because you're just outside. It's just outside Newcastle, isn't it? That whole area. So yeah. I'm in Birmingham, so I'd have to. Yeah, it's serious travelling down there.
Oh no, that's nothing. Birmingham, you've got a little sci-fi museum in Brumyard called not far from you, which I travel down to. It's a little bit like what I do. It's not quite the same. In a place called Brumyard, and I travelled down about 2 years ago. I've done it a few times. I just look at it as a day out to see interesting things, I just love it. I love people's passions. That's what's nice. I've been to lots of corporate exhibitions, the BBC ones, but they're great. I mean, they've got access, obviously, to everything, but there's something lovely about when people put their heart and souls. It's not a corporation doing this. This is the individual's love of something. That's what is really lovely.
And how did you got started through Kickstarter? Am I right?
No. Kickstarter helped finish me off, sorry, in the nicest possible way. Without Kickstarter, I wouldn't be open now. I'd be open in another 2 years, I would say. It was my wife suggested Kickstarter, and I've never asked anybody for any money in my life. You know, I've always grafted away to get whatever, sold things, you know, whatever to do to get the collection together. But to get the building I'm in is a grade 2 listed building. So you're coming to a 300-year-old cellar if you visit. And I've literally done all the stonework by hand. I had to repair the ceiling, put a new ceiling in, a new floor in. That's why it's taken 4 years. And the last year, we had Netflix came and filmed. And along with Netflix, I did the Kickstarter, which I didn't know how I was going to go. And I got about £10,000 from Kickstarter donors, which was amazing. Now, that £10,000, it paid for the materials, really. It wasn't as much work. It was just simply wood and the raw materials to glass the glass. Each sheet of glass cost me £120 because it's got to be safety glass. And you put that through the whole museum, and this starts to mount up pretty quick. So it was Kickstarter literally got me finished to this point now.
It's kind of a case of just like the film, the quote from the movie, if you build it, they will come. And so you had the collection. So the collection predates your museum by quite a long way. And how about you? How about you specifically in Doctor Who? Did all this start for you with Doctor Who, and did you find Doctor Who, or did it find you? How old were you?
Oh, I mean, my earliest memories of Doctor Who. I'm old now, so you know I'm like nearly 50. So I was growing up. You dive off your bike, you know, put down whatever you were doing, and you dash in to watch a 20-minute fix of Doctor Who on a Saturday night, and there was nothing else on. For the young'uns out there, there was so little. There was Star Trek, the original series. Now, I mean, I love, that was on BBC One, but I love monsters. And Star Trek, the original series is, I hate to say it, guys, it's desperately short of monsters. Doctor Who was not the same. Doctor Who was monster world, you know. You had some of the great, and especially in the mid-70s, you had John Friedlander, his superpowers, knocking out Crinoid, Zygons, Morbius. You know, what a time to watch Doctor Who when you were 5. I mean, it was amazing. And then the killer moment was my dad once took me down on a drinking weekend, not for me, for him. We went down to Blackpool, and the Doctor Who exhibition was there, about 1976. And there was no merchandise then. This is the other thing, zero. There was the Target books. I got my first Target book that year, which was the Zarbi, and I hadn't a bloody clue who the guy was on the front cover, you know, whoever he was. And then you went to the Doctor Who museum, the exhibition, and there was the Wirren, there was Steyer, who's my favourite all-timer. There was it was mind-blowing. And I remember then, I remember all I got at the end of that museum was a helium balloon with a Dalek on it. And the disappointment of coming out with a helium balloon with a Dalek on it and then spending the next 2 days trying to work out how many ways to entertain myself with a helium balloon. I just thought, I want to do this. You know, I want this. I never thought I ever would.
But you want to be a model maker or a costume maker or an effects man. Is that where your ambitions lay originally?
Yeah, I want to make monsters. I mean, I either want to be a comic artist or make monsters. I still think I might end up writing a comic or two before I cark it. It's on my bucket list. But I think I'm quite happy. You know, if I carked it tomorrow, I could actually say, you know, you could put on my tombstone, he did make a Doctor Who museum. He did it. He was 50 and he did it. I'm not quite 50, but you know what I mean? Yeah. It is quite an achievement, really. Because I have done it mostly myself. And the lucky bit, right, was the collection's taken time. The lucky bit, the break we got was getting the building. But when I say it was like, I'm watching The Haunting of Hill House at the minute. And this makes Hill House, our house, it made Hill House look like a luxury apartment. You know, it was pretty awful, the house, when we got it. We got it very reasonably. And that was the stroke of luck, you know.
It seems like a very fitting place to accumulate, to gather together all these things, like it's part of the atmosphere, somewhere with character, somewhere that's not far from impossible to get to, but a little bit off the beaten track as well. That's part of there's a certain romance about that lends itself very well to geeky interests, aren't there?
Yeah, I don't know if you ever went to Llangollen when it was open, the Doctor Who experience at Llangollen.
Yeah. 3 or 4 times.
I did not. I was never in fandom particularly. You know, I was a fan, but like one of these isolated fans who just sort of read and, you know, watched more films than I should do. And then one day I just realized Llangollen was open. I didn't realize these props still existed. I knew a lot had been auctioned off in the 90s. I had no idea, like the original Axon costume, the surviving Axon was there. Morbius, I had no idea. And I drove down to Llangollen. I got my car license late because I came from zero money. This is the funny thing. People say, oh, you must be really wealthy. No, I had a very, I had about 5 Target books and a knackered Dennis Fisher, Tom Baker, It was not wealthy. And it was just sheer bloody mindedness, really, that I managed this. Anyway, I finally got a really small little car, and I drove to Llangollen, and it blew my mind for Llangollen. And it was just not, the place itself was wonderful, I loved the idea you got an all-day ticket. I loved the place. It was a nice place to visit, and
you could go. You could go around the toy factory as well. You could actually go around the place where they made these.
Yeah,
that was about. And of course, would you say that was half of the exhibit? For the people who are listening who haven't been, half of the exhibit was the toy factory, wasn't it? Where they had the license to make the official thing at that time, and the other half was an exhibition.
Yeah, I mean, when I went there, the toy thing was shut. You could walk around it. But again, it's worth remembering, I guess, that we're surrounded, aren't we, by merchandise of massively good quality. The quality of figures now. I mean, that's another thing. I've done the odd figure sculpt. I love, good quality stuff. Dapol was, how do we say it? I mean, I'm very fond of Dapol figures, But we would be lying here, wouldn't we, if we sat here and said they were accurate. I mean, I'm really not going to say anything else because I love them.
Yeah, they are. They are a parallel universe of Doctor Who. It's all very quaint, and it's all done. You can see it was done with as much care as they could, dependent on the budget, the logistics they'd got to work with at the time, and to be fair, the profile of the series at the time too. So it's very hard to be too cruel to that. And they did endure, and people still talk about them.
The thing with what's interesting about Dapol is that around the same time, you had McFarlane came out, remember, with the Spawn action figures, and you had these incredibly detailed figures came out, and then you'd still be buying Dapol figures, which was the contrast was insane, really, wasn't it? You had sort of like the Movie Maniac series.
Very much so.
They were just high quality, but Dapol, it was the only Doctor Who. The other thing was Harlequin miniatures. I loved those, the little metal miniatures.
Those were you had to paint those yourself, didn't you?
I loved those. I got a huge collection. Anyway, I'm digressing, but it was the Llangollen. That experience, it taught me a lot about, I thought, well, if you can have this in Llangollen, if you can do that there, then why not the Northeast? I mean, from us up north, there's, we'd hardly get anything. You know what I mean? If somebody in fancy dress rolls around the street as R2-D2, you can imagine the local press turning up. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It just,
absolutely.
It was a dearth of science fiction. So I just thought, right, I'm going to open a science fiction museum. I'm going to do it, and it was
it's still a big leap from having, you've had some Target books, some Dapol figures, and what we did accumulate as fans, I was there too, through the late 70s or the 80s, what we'd accumulate where we could, the Doctor Who bubble bath, that year's Skeletor calendar, whatever. It's a big leap from that to opening a museum. What was your very first prop or costume? Can you remember what it was?
I do. Do you remember Seven's models?
Yes.
The Sevens models kits, I remember getting I always wanted a Dalek. I always wanted to make a Dalek. Again, just lack of money and expertise and knowledge how to go around things. I was an artist, I could draw anything, but it was just lack of experience with other materials. And I remember contacting Stuart Evans and getting an original Castor Cyber helmet from him, which I still have. And that was amazing. It needed finishing. It'd been made by production. He'd got it to work with. And it was just, that in itself was just like a wow. And then the biggie was
the fact that it was screen used, the fact that it had been on screen.
It was production made, so it was made by the Beeb, but it was never finished. So it was a bit bashed. It had been chucked around a lot, used by them for various things, and it ultimately was a reject. That didn't matter to me. To me, it was, wow, that is actually from the place that makes Doctor Who. That was good enough for me. That was like, I remember getting it. I remember going up to my friend, we're the same age, and we were both wearing this really dangerous to wear helmet and, getting cuts on our face from fiberglass and thinking that was marvelous because we were actually wearing a BBC made cyber thing. And And then after that, there was the Bonhams auction. Do you remember that? The 1990s one. It was on Blue Peter, I remember. And I just remember feeling, I had no money. I just started as a student, and I just had no money, and I just remember wanting to cry. And I thought, I would probably sell my clothes and my left kidney for a Sarn Dweller's scarf. I thought, what's the worst prop in that auction? It's got to be a Sarn Dweller's, turban. So I would sell my kidney just to have a little bit of something from that auction, And I just thought that would be the end of it. I thought their props would go, and which they did. I bought the catalogue. Even the catalogue felt like a lot of money then. Got the catalogue, and then I thought that would be the end of it for me. I just thought, I just used to reread that catalogue. Now then slowly, props kept filtering out. I had no idea there were other auctions that had gone on as well. But again, I've never been in the know, so I missed out on a lot of the earlier auctions where things went relatively cheaply, to be honest, now, compared to prices now. And then after that, I then started to buy them. And it would take me like a proper year. I mean, I would have to, once I started teaching, I could then do, monthly payments on something. I mean, I really have done it the most agonizingly slow way imaginable. I still haven't got a Sarn Dweller's turban. So anyone out there listening to this, I'll have it. I'll pay you good money for it.
How many items? How many items do you own now, both in the exhibition or not?
I mean, I've got two halves of the exhibition. One is Doctor Who Classic. I have I think it's about 80 props from Doctor Who Classic, which doesn't. I don't know if that sounds like a lot or a little. It's basically that includes 84, things like
85 more than I've got.
Okay. Bearing in mind, I sold every bit of merchandise to do this. All my character options figures, which I adore, in past tense, because they're no longer with me. I got £3,000 selling that lot. It's amazing. That went straight into prop, and I don't buy merchandise. I just can't, because I've got no money for it, basically, because I'm buying these bleeding things. But I love it. I do. I love it. And the other thing is, what I do is, because I'm a sculptor, really, I can fix things. So, like at the minute, actually, sorry, this is what I'm working on at the minute. I don't know if you can see it. This is like a cheetah person head. So I've got the original cheetah person, right? But the mouth, the face
from the 1989 story Survival. This is
and basically what you've got here. Oh God, there's his teeth gone. Sorry. What you've got there is the original head, but the face rotted away. So when I got it, I've got the full costume on display in the museum, but the no head. And I thought, right, okay, I'll sculpt the face and then I'll wrap the fur around again. Now, if I was to go to, say, a prop maker professionally, that would be a couple of £1,000s of work. I can do it for nothing. So that's how, like the pterodactyl I've got on display, which I think it's probably a couple of years of work I've put into that. I've re-sculpted all the missing areas because it was in the Longleat fire, the Longleat exhibition fire. And I was able to do that. And that means that we've now I've got the original head, the surviving head, which is it needed repair. But when I put it back on, it was the green head. Basically, the BBC had shoved the green animatronic leader head on the red body. And when I started putting it all together, I just thought, oh, that's just wrong. I can't do that because I'm a bit sort of OCD. I thought, no, I can't do that. So I've ended up making the top head again. And I think it looks pretty good. And I think so people can come and see a complete pterodactyl now. But, I couldn't afford, when you go to a big auction, you've got some big money in the room. And so you've got to just be I guess I go for the things that I can rescue, things that other people might throw in the bin. I'll have a damn good go at. And part of the project is to make these things survive. I mean, it's the only surviving pterodactyl body that I'm aware of now left. The Garm's another one. I've rescued the Garm and repaired him. He'd been abused.
It seems to me that you've had to become. You wear several hats with all this. You're part businessman. You're part Indiana Jones, the Indiana Jones of costumes. You're part restoration expert. Yeah. And obviously, there's the fan side to you as well. Do you when you watch Doctor Who now, when you have got the time, when you watch Doctor Who now, do you watch it still very much with this eye for the monsters, for the costumes, for what may make a good exhibit in the future if you're able to expand and continue?
Yeah, there's a thrill of seeing something you've repaired in the show. So, for example, what I do, the only thing I watch every week is classic Doctor Who. Okay, I watch classic Doctor Who with my daughter. I've got 2 children, and my eldest daughter and I love classic Doctor Who, and she loves John Pertwee. So we watch John Pertwee a lot. So we watch the Sea Devils. At the minute, we're in the middle of the Sea Devils, and I've got a Sea Devil arm in the museum. And there's only literally about 4 surviving original sections of anything from a Sea Devil surviving, right? And I've got one of the arms, you know. There's to my knowledge, there's 2 heads and 2 arms, and I've got one of the arms in, you know. And it looks to the general public like a dish rag, okay? I mean, this is not something most people would want in their home. However, to me, it is a bit of pure magic, you know. And you get people, and so then, sorry, when I'm watching Doctor Who, and you see that scene where they come out the water, you just think, wow, you know, a little bit of history downstairs. I don't know which arm it is, you know, but, you know, it's one of those arms is coming in there, you know. And so how do I watch Doctor Who? I can still actually suspend my disbelief in classic Who. I know it's a single set often. I know it's multi-camera. I know all the tech stuff, but there's something about it. It still catches me, and it's lovely watching it with my daughter.
Does New Who still make you feel the same way? Do you still get that kick out of New Who too? Not to the same extent.
No.
So do you but from somebody who's interested in costumes and those techniques, does that side to you kick in when you watch that and you wonder, oh, how did they do that prosthetic? Can you still watch it with those eyes as part of the fun?
Yes. In fact, I would say that's the only way I can watch new Doctor Who is probably, I mean, Doctor Who's never had better production, a chance to shine through production than ever. I mean, clearly, it's insane what they've got now. When you watch something like the Sea Devils and then you watch new Doctor Who, it's mad. I mean, it's like, it's a divide, isn't it? But what I think it reminds me that some of the strongest, it says something about the classic run's strength of design, that some of the old episodes stand and fall by literally the strength of the design, because it's not the actual techniques they've got. But the new show, I mean, basically my favorite aspect of the new show would be the creature design, would be the production values, I guess, you know, that's what that involves. The writing hasn't, and this isn't, again, I don't want to sort of get into is new Who good, bad, whatever. It's not it's about, I guess it's like anything. It's a story that resonates with you or doesn't. And the way the Doctor particularly has been handled for me over the last few years has not resonated with me personally. Basically, in a nutshell, I never wanted him to be a romantic character. I liked him as a paternal character. Mm-hmm. So I never wanted him having relationships, because that to me spoils something of the innocence of that original character. That was something magical about the fact he wasn't that. And I personally, if I'd been in charge of it, would never have gone there. The companions can do whatever they bloody like, you know. You know, it was just, there you go.
And that purity of the tea time monster movie is still where you find the sweet spot with Doctor Who, ideally.
Yeah.
Remind us, Neil, where exactly are you, and where can people come and take a look at what you've got and where you are and the whole story of your museum? Where can they find you on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter? Are you all across that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm in Northumberland. It's the Museum of Classic Science Fiction. If you go on Facebook and put in Neil Cole's Adventures in Science Fiction, you'll get the Facebook page. The Facebook page has like been my blog. My wife made me do it a few years ago, and it's been a really good thing, because I've had people like Stephen Gallagher has been in touch because of it, who wrote, you know, Warrior's Gate and Terminus, and various people, fascinating people. Andrew Scaletta and I are friends now. It's fabulous. I've got a lot of Andrew Scaletta paintings in the museum. So Neil Cole's Adventures in Science Fiction on Facebook, and on the website is MuseumofClassicSci-Fi.com. And I'm on a YouTube channel as well, which if you type in Museum of Classic Sci-Fi on YouTube, you should get some, it could be lovely. If people subscribe to that channel, that'd be great. Again, it's more just progress. I try to, I only put content on when I've got something to say. Hopefully that's of, you know, interest. We had John Levine came and opened the museum, which was sublime. Sergeant Benton sat with my daughter and we watched John Pertwee in my living room. I mean, that is just, you know, again, if nothing else happens, that happened. And that was just incredible. We've been watching the Three Doctors, right? My daughter and I, Sergeant Benton asked my daughter down. John says, bring her down, bring her down. Introduces himself in uniform as Sergeant Benton to my daughter, saying he's just landed from the TARDIS. Shall we watch Doctor Who together? I mean, wow. That's just, I don't care what happens now.
That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that childhoods are made of, Neil.
Yeah, absolutely. It's marvellous.
And I've no doubt that through your museum as well, the fact that people can come and see what you've managed to build and achieve, that you'll make a few extra childhoods with that. And I suppose through keeping an eye on you through social media and hopefully your museum, you plan on more growth for it over the next couple of years, that it's a way of interacting with your audience and with your people who can make return visits year after year, really, and as the thing grows.
Yeah, I'm hopefully I'm always going to be putting new things in. Half of it's like a science fiction history. So you've got H.G. Wells, a bit of Star Trek, Dune, various other bits about, and some Marvel pieces in. And then I guess my true passion is the classic Doctor Who, and I'm always adding bits. I've got Mestor to go in yet. He's not out yet. Chimeron is going in as well. I've got various other bits and bobs to go in. Also, if you didn't know, if you want to see a bit of the making of the museum on Netflix, Amazing Interiors Episode 3, we filmed for 6 months with Netflix, which was mad. And that's on there. That's on Netflix as well. So that's quite nice. If you just want a sort of flavour of the sort of work I've been doing, which is quite good as well.
So the watchword or the watchwords for the people out there who are interested in what you're doing, it's very much still watch this space. And this is just the beginning.
Yeah, it's just the beginning. I'd love to do more days as well. We have guest speakers down, because what we've got a proper little museum here now. And these are unique pieces. These are quite a considerable collection. You've got things like the Dom, Mestor, you've got the surviving Cyber Scout from the sewers. There's only 2 made. I've got the one that didn't get blown up. You've got Sill's original head. You've got the Galset, a surviving Galset gun from Sontaran Experiment. There's a lot of they're all unique pieces. So even if, it's one of those places you're going to see something you're not going to see anywhere else. And basically I'm here to sit and enthuse with anybody who walks through the door. And if you turn up at 4 o'clock, we'll go for a pint afterwards next door, because there's a pub next door.
I don't know about you, Kyle, but I'm sold. I'll be there. I'll be there next year. So I'll see you then.
4 o'clock. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on to speak to us, Neil.
You're welcome.
It's been a blast, and it's just made me want to come more. So I'll definitely be there in 2019. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.